their prerogative. Because in the Quran, Allah says here, in the Quran, I'll give it in English. He says, لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الخير فمن يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى, which means, rough translation, there's no compulsory religion, but the right path is distinct from the wrong path. As for him who worships God, Allah, worships God, who worships God, and they do not worship false deities, they have grasped the firmest handhold that will never break. So to your question, Paul, so if they chose Christianity and it prevented them from knife crime, etc., so be it. But if in my effort as a Muslim, my duty, I would still, as a duty, try to call them to Islam. But if they chose to remain as Christians, from this verse, I would have to leave them alone. Because there's no compulsion in religion. But I have to put my belief forward. And if you choose to accept it, you accept it. If you choose to reject it, I have to leave you alone. And this is the thing that we all have to understand here, as people who seek to understand religion and what's right and what's wrong and what Islam really says. The truth is, you cannot force belief onto people. Our duty is to call the people to worship Allah. And if they choose not to do it, you have to leave them alone. Because I know if I was questioned as a Muslim, that's the verse I'm going to bring. There's no compulsion. Because there are a people in Islam called hypocrites. In Islam, the word is called munafiq. Yeah? They are a people who outwardly display Islam, but inwardly there's disbelief. So if you try to force your belief onto someone, you could make them into a hypocrite. Because the person could easily say to me, okay, you know, I'm a Muslim. But in their heart, they have disbelief. Because remember what I said, right? Paul, what makes you a Muslim? You have to submit your will to God. So a person who's a true Muslim, they submit their will to God. And that is what our aim is. Do you understand? We cannot force belief onto people. So any type of Muslim that has an idea of trying to force their belief, they're going against the teachings of the Islam.
Why do you think you get resistance to this idea? I saw resistance earlier on. The guys were arguing with you.
About the black thing.
Seems quite logical.
Yeah.
And why do you get people arguing against it? What you
because what we can see from people, right, Paul? If people was to study religion and culture, you would find culture has a stronger bearing on people's lives and even religion.
Peer pressure?
Not necessarily peer pressure, because from your question, why do they hold this position? And I'm going to bring it to you. So, from a cultural standpoint, we can see from people, that their culture has more bearings in their life than religion. This is why sometimes when you see religion, and when we look at someone like Islam, a lot of people bring cultural practices into Islam. Do you understand? So when we look at the black people, because there was an earlier conversation for people who don't know, we was having an earlier conversation with some people that have this strong affiliation to blackness. And what I'm trying to say, I was trying to explain here, I believe for black people, this is something that is distracting them. This is a distraction. Because what they do, they get emotional about it, because it's an emotional argument. They look at history, they look at what's happened to black people throughout history, they look at things like factual things, like slavery, they look at things like how Africa, has been invaded, certain jewels, the wealth of Africa has been taken, etc. So a lot of black people think they've been hard done by. So if they see a people who is upon a religion, other than what they are upon, they associate that religion and the God with those people. So they tend to shun themselves from those type of people. So black, because it's an emotional thing, Paul. You get quite emotional. This is like when the man asked me earlier on, are you black first or are you a Muslim? For me, I'm a Muslim first. I'm a Muslim first.
That wound him up a bit.
Yeah, he wound him up first. Because he never liked the fact that I said that I'm a Muslim first. Because for me as a Muslim, yeah, what's important for me to try to guide the people to is the teaching of Islam. Because we believe that if you follow the correct teachings of Islam, you will attain the paradise. You would attain, and this is what the Prophet peace be upon him taught us. He was as far as I'm concerned, if he was not the first, he was amongst the first and foremost to speak out against religion. Do you understand? He was the first, sorry, not to speak out against religion, to speak out against racism. Like I mentioned earlier on here, before the individual started filming, and let me just mention it for the record here, that the Prophet peace upon him said that an Arab is not better than a non-Arab. A non-Arab is not better than an Arab. A black is not better than a white person, and a white person is not better than a black person. The only distinction in Islam is your, what we call taqwa, your God-fearingness, your closeness to God. That's the only distinction that we make. Do you understand? So I believe that a lot of black people, and I know a lot of them are going to disagree with me, a lot of black people are led in the wrong direction when it comes to this, because they're talking about stuff which is true and we can understand, etc. But that is not the focus. That is not the thing that's going to attain you to paradise.
You don't think it's deliberate?
No, I don't. Do you know what? Do you know what it is? Do you know what it is, John? But I don't think it's deliberate. I think it's an emotional argument. It's emotional. Whereas in Islam, decisions are not based upon emotion. Did you want to say something, bro?
I have a potential question. Yeah. Sure. It's an interesting discussion.
Yeah.
You say that it's not based on emotion. I want to suggest an idea that maybe parts of it can be, but you obviously have your own perspective, right? Because what about, for example, if people were to publicly mock Muhammad or the Quran, and you're going to take offence at that? Is that
That's
not
correct.
emotional?
There's
maybe
a difference.
You know,
that's
I'm
fine.
just
That's a difference. Remember what I said? Because what it is, because you know with the camera, that's why I'm repeating some of the things. Because obviously the brother's got this on camera, so I'm going to repeat some of the things I said.
Yeah.
Earlier on, I was having a discussion about why I feel it's important to deal with the racism issue. Because there's a lot of black people, because of what's happened in the past, they feel this strong affiliation to their blackness, and why they need to focus upon their blackness, they need to focus upon their history, they say things like it's our history, etc., etc., etc. Particularly when they look at how slavery, you know, how Africa was invaded, you know, and a lot of jewels and minerals and whatever taken from Africa. So I'm saying they're getting quite emotional about this. But what you're saying about Muhammad, peace upon him, this is something which is slightly different. Sorry, my friend. That's fine, bro. That's fine. That's fine. No, that's fine. So what I'm trying to say about Muhammad's peace upon him, of course, as a Muslim, I'm going to get offended and emotional when people criticize Muhammad. By right, all Muslims as well should get offended if people criticize Jesus. If people criticize all the prophets, because as Muslims, we believe in all the prophets and messengers sent to mankind. Even people, right? They openly criticize God. People make certain disparaging statements about God. So we would get emotional about that. So what I'm trying to say is that argument is different to the black people having this emotional argument about what's happened in history. Do you understand? Because remember, as a Muslim, the most important thing, if you were to ask me, so what's the most important thing? The most important thing is that we worship the one God. You understand? And as a Muslim, I'm not going to differ with that teaching. I'm not going to focus upon something which is other than or less than that important. Because the colour thing, I believe, is a distraction. It just distracts black people.
Okay.
That's what my belief is. So
can I go back to this idea?
Yes.
I asked you earlier about criminals turning to Christianity.
Yes.
Good thing or bad thing to you? Would you see them going to Christianity as halfway to being a Muslim?
That's a good point. It may well be. It may well be. Because like I said, right, Paul, because you mentioned a very good point. It's quite pragmatic.
Yeah,
because,
take
yes,
the emotions out.
Yeah, because what we do, absolutely,
straight to pragmatic.
absolutely. So therefore, if we saw, supposing we saw, there's a spate of knife crime in a particular area, it just went completely down because people turned to Christianity. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. But as a duty, as a Muslim, because I'm a Muslim and I believe that Islam is the right way, I would make an effort to call whoever. Assalamu alaikum, how are you doing, bro? You okay, yeah? I would make an effort to call anyone, whether you're gay, whether you're transgender. We make no distinction that our duty is to call you to the worship of the one God. So we make no distinction. But if you see,
you expect them to change.
No, but you see, this is the very good thing. What, somebody who's gay?
Yeah. Would you want them to change to become a Muslim?
But a person doesn't have to. A person doesn't have to be. They don't have to change to become a Muslim. If a gay person accepts Islam, they're still a Muslim. They're still a Muslim. That's the thing.
They're still gay.
They're still gay. They're still a Muslim. What we say, yes, they're still a Muslim. See, this is something which is very important, Paul. It's very, very important. Yeah, a person being gay doesn't take them out of the fold of Islam. What we say, yeah, the worst crime in Islam is something called shirk, and this is what the people need to understand, right? Shirk. I'm gonna explain it to you. Yeah, shirk is. It's called association. When you worship others besides God, you worship others with God. That's association. That is the worst crime. What Allah says in the Quran, yeah, إِنَّهُ مَنْ يُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ فقد حرم الله عليه الجنة ومأواه النار وما للظالمين من أنصار. So this is, I'll give you the English here. What Allah says, yeah, whoever, listen to do when you die, whoever dies basically associating partners with God, he shall make paradise forbidden for that person and make hellfire their resting place. Yeah? And there's no helpers for the wrongdoers. Yeah? And there's another verse where Allah says, I'm going to mention the Arabic first and the English, where Allah says, yeah, I'm trying to remember the verse, whoever committed, what Allah, basically what Allah says, I've forgotten the Arabic, but basically what Allah says,
you can make the Arab.
Whoever commits, I'm trying to figure the verse.
You're wrong.
Yeah, but I'm trying to show you our position.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the gay thing, let me explain to you. What Allah says, ما دونك ذلك لمن يشاء. إنه من يشرك بالله. I'm trying to remember the verse. That Allah says, yeah, that basically that Allah says, the English, that that He forgives whatever is less than shirk.
Okay.
Do you understand? So what we understand from this verse here, there's no action that is worse than shirk. So for example, if someone is gay and they're Muslim, they're a Muslim. What we say on the Day of Judgment, what we say, they're under the Mashiach of Allah, meaning they're under the will of Allah. So if Allah wills, He can either punish them, and if He wills, He can forgive them. So as my duty, it doesn't make no difference. You can be transgender, you can be gay, but my duty is to call you to the worship of the God. So what some people do, they focus upon that action, but our duty is to call people to worship God. Why? Because that is the most important action. Because God says in the Quran that if you die committing shirk, He won't forgive you. He didn't say if you're gay that He's never going to forgive you. No, the worst crime is shirk. Do you understand? That's the worst crime.
So, sorry if I've misunderstood it, but you can be gay, revert to Muslim, and still be gay, and still be a Muslim.
No, let me explain it. Let me explain it. Let me give you a bit more details about it. Yeah, but obviously, as Muslims, yeah, just like Christians, just like Jews, just like even many people who don't affiliate to religion, they hold the position, that homosexuality is something which they don't accept. People have this is a belief that people have. But what I am saying as a Muslim, the most important thing for us to do is to guide the people to the worship of God. Because look, obviously, if a person is gay, and they were Muslim, and they never knew, for example, that homosexuality was forbidden in Islam. Just say for argument they never knew. I would obviously inform them. But if that person is a Muslim and they're gay, they're still a Muslim. That's what's the most important thing. They're still Muslim. But a person being gay does not eject them from Islam. This is why, you see, with us, we focus on the worshipping of God. That's the focus. You have a lot of, sorry, let me just mention this, Paul. There's a lot of people, their focus becomes other than what the true focus should be. Do you understand? Because whatever action a person does or a Muslim does that's incorrect, it's our duty to inform them. We would inform them that this is something which is not correct. But you have to understand, shirk, associating partners with God, worshipping others besides God, worshipping idols, etc. That is the worst crime. So if a person chooses, they're a Muslim, but they choose to still be gay, they're still a Muslim. They're still Muslim. That doesn't take them out of the fold of Islam. But unfortunately, what happens, you have a lot of Muslims, their focus is other than what their true focus should be. And that's the teaching.
People are born gay. I think it's in their brain.
That's another question now. This is another question. If you ask me personally, I don't hold this as a belief. I don't hold this as a belief.
You don't think being gay is a creation of Allah?
No. I don't hold this as a belief, Paul. That's my belief. If people hold that as a belief, that's their prerogative. But if you ask me, I don't hold it as a belief.
Scientific proof.
Is there? What scientific proof? All right.
And there's gay animals.
But even if there are gay animals, that's not a proof that people are born gay. That's just it's a different argument itself. You understand? But you see, for me, right?
Hold on, one cheeky question.
Yes, another cheeky question. Go on.
Do straight Muslims feel superior to gay people?
No. Remember what I said to you. Paul. The only distinction that we have in Islam is to do with God-fearingness. Those who fear God the most, those who are foremost in doing righteous actions. Because look, there's a verse in the Quran where Allah says, and again, I'll give you the Arabic, I'll mention the English. Allah says, Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas ta'maruna bil ma'rufi wa tanhauna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah. This is what Allah says. Allah says, directing it at the Muslims who do what? He says, you are the best nation to be taken out of mankind. Why? What's the criteria? Because you enjoin what is good and you forbid what is evil and you believe in Allah. That's what Allah says. You understand? That's what Allah says. So, and obviously, when we look at enjoining what is good, what does that mean? When we look at enjoining and forbidding evil, what does that mean? Do you understand? So, the true Muslim, the one who's upon that correct way, they would call people first and foremost to the worship of the one God, because that is our duty. Do you understand? This thing of being gay, homosexual, etc., etc. Because if I saw someone, who's gay and they're homosexual and they wanted to accept Islam, that's what I'm going to focus upon.
Well, would you expect them to change their sexuality?
For me, right, I'll explain it. Because I know that this is something which is considered sinful in Islam, of course I would advise them. But the most important thing is that they're Muslim. That is more important. Do you understand? Because you see, for me, right, Paul, if I profess to be upon good, I must call the people to that good. Do you understand? And that's why we call the people. If you reject it, you reject it. You understand? And I can't force it upon you. Do you understand? So that is our duty. So this is what we need to focus on, and this is what we need to call the people on, and focus upon that which is the most important aspect of the deen, which we call Tawheed. Tawheed. Yeah.